Good Monday evening, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Safety Stop. And happy Cinco de Mayo. Where's my margarita?
Exactly. Where's the margarita?
Oh, I thought I had our screen up whenever I switched it over, and I was like, "Wait a minute, why is this not working?" So anyway,
Let's play it
yeah, we just loved it so much, just wanted to play it again. But anyway, it is Cinco de Mayo. Unfortunately, I am not celebrating it tonight. I'm exhausted.
again. Me too. I'm gonna blame it on the weather.
You know,
I'm tired of the rain.
that is true. It has been kind of cloudy and just dreary. The last several days, and it's just it's like blah. Give me some
Like
sunshine.
sunshine, get some good vitamin D going, some warm temperatures.
Oh yeah.
Turning into diving season. Get more excited.
Well, it won't be long. I mean, so current update: the surface temperature is running about 70 degrees. So we are climbing. The bad news is the thermocline's setting at 13 feet. So, and it's about 55 below the thermocline. So,
Oh,
yeah, just a little abrupt. But if we had 3 or 4 weeks of nice sunshiny days and warmer temperatures, that would push on down a little bit.
I think good news is we're pretty much getting rid of the rain for the next few days.
Whew, I hope so.
I know my yard needs mowed.
Oh goodness! Looks like Mr. Todd has joined us. Good evening. Um, that's one thing that I have to say. You know, is I think we've had enough rain over the last month or so to last us the rest of the year. So, you
Yeah,
know,
plenty of rain.
yeah, more than enough. You know,
How's the water level standing this week?
luckily I mean, it's going down. We actually you can actually make it to pavilion number 2 now. And
Oh,
so it has went down substantially. It's still up in pavilions 27, 26, 25. In Pavilion 1. So, it was up, way up. And so it has receded. And as long as we don't get any torrential downpours, hopefully it will continue to recede.
uh, yeah. Let's not quit doing your rain dance. All right.
I'm trying not to. You know, it's like, come on, just, give us a break. But anyway, I thought something good to talk about tonight would be, something that we all don't really think about all that often. Some people do, most people don't. Is, you know, on average, how many open water skills do you practice during a dive? Just as a recreational diver, who isn't quote unquote an avid diver, you're not really diving all the time, more or less vacations and stuff like that. How much do you really think about those open water skills that you had to perform to earn your certification?
I think of them quite a bit, but I'm a little bit different.
Well, yeah, and
Uh,
as dive professionals, we do think about it a little bit different. I can honestly say that I'm always practicing my mask clearing skills because, you know, when it starts to fog up just a little on me, even though I've got defog in it, what's the first thing I'm going to do? Partial flood, clear it out, you know. So, I've gotten pretty proficient at that one over the years. But the big thing is buoyancy.
yeah.
You know, always paying attention. When you're diving, your buoyancy. A lot of people do. I noticed. I believe it was last week. There's a new law out in Thailand, I believe it is, where they're not allowing entry level divers to take cameras underwater anymore.
Hey, I'm up for it because I mean it takes quite a bit to get your buoyancy down, and
Oh,
then
it
fast
does.
floating on top of it makes it even worse.
Oh yeah, yeah, and in particular, the skill that I'm kind of focus on tonight is your SMB. SMB deployment. You can deploy it. Kneeling on the bottom like in a sandy patch, or if you're at the quarry, on a platform. But like especially for deep class, you've got to be able to deploy it and keep control hovering.
Hmm.
So, you know, that's the reason I brought up, how often do we think about the basic open water skills when we do a dive?
Yeah, it's very important. I know we got Bon Air coming up here in this spring.
Hmm.
I'll have mine with me. You want to pop that thing up before you even get to the surface, just for boat traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, not even navigation. It's just safety, so you don't get your head cut off.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It looks like Mike has joined us. Good evening, Mike. Um, yeah. I mean, especially if you're diving in navigable waters, and you see it down, especially like in Cozumel, where the boat's dropping you off, you're doing a drift dive. When you start to get towards the end of the dive, the first thing the dive master does before he starts the ascent, he pops his SMB, and that lets the boat know where he's at, and so when they come up, you kind of got the group there together. If they're not, you better have an SMB because that's how the boat's going to find you.
Yeah. I mean, I had things where I did a dive 80 feet, go one direction, I come up 50 feet. Don't want to waste all my bottom time. I come
Mhm.
back at 50 feet. Well, I can't see the bottom because the visibility is only 40 feet or so. But I can't see the boat either because I'm right there in that that soft spot. Uh,
You're in the blue
so
zone.
yeah. So all right. I don't know where the boat is. I know I'm close, but yeah. I'll pop it up, and that's what I use for the boat will see me, know where I'm at. I can safely turtle up and find the boat when I need.
Yeah.
Luckily, that time I ended up right freaking in front of the boat. Wasn't
Well,
very far.
and again, there's it's kind of like several years ago when, especially in the Caribbean, when a lot of boat operators started requiring divers to have a snorkel with them. They didn't have to have it. You don't have to have it on attached, but you got to have it in a BC pocket or something. You got to have a snorkel with you. And they're starting to get more to where they're recommending that SMB with you, and that way, if something was to happen, you get separated from the group, whatnot. You know how to deploy it, and the boat can find you. So, very
Well,
important skill.
we also always talk about redundancy.
Yes.
And, well, we don't really have a redundancy for our BCD.
Yeah. No.
No? So, that, you know, the buoy right there can end up being a secondary BCD for you at the surface when you use it to float on.
Yeah. Well, but they don't recommend that. Of course, in an emergency, you
And I
know.
mean, if you're sitting out there in the middle of the ocean and you need to, take a load off because you're tired, yeah, I'm gonna
Oh yeah.
sit on that thing.
Yeah, well, and of course, there's a couple of different types of SMBs. I'm not familiar with, you have the type that you blow into, right? It's
Yeah, blow into it, and you can only deflate it uh, by depressing that same uh, valve.
that same valve, yeah.
Yeah,
Looks like Mike Hahn has joined us. Good evening, Mike. Tonight's discussion is just basic open water skills, kind of focusing on the SMB and why it is important to be proficient in your SMB deployment, and why we need them. Um, there's
now
a
I
like.
did
Oh, go ahead.
get Chloe one for her Christmas, my daughter, and of course I wanted her to use it when we went to Florida, practicing using it. 'Cause I find it a very useful skill to be proficient at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so I taught her how to set the reel up, and she has one of those where you inflate from the bottom,
mhm.
so
The
you put
open
your
open
inflator in
bottom.
there to, yeah. Um, but it also has a way for it to kind of shut if you want it to. Yeah, I make a couple different kinds.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. Like I said, there's a couple different ones out there. One that's really interesting that just come out within the last couple of years um, is the one that has the spool already connected. So it's pretty much, a one-step deployment. You pull it out, inflate it, and then the spool is there, and you let it go to the surface, clip it off. It just keeps you from having to have another clip with a thumb, like a thumb spool, thumb reel on it, or if you have a reel, you know, going from your SMB, getting it attached, and then airing it up and letting it go. Uh, excuse me. I know XS Scuba has them, and they come in, couple, I think 4 different colors: yellow, orange, red, pink, if I'm not mistaken. But those are like a one stop. You've got your reel with, I think it's 100-foot line, and then of course your SMB.
Um, I pretty much have mine set up in about a three or four step process to get it out, get it set up so it can be deployed.
Yeah.
That's just the way I have it set up. There's some YouTube videos all over the place. Good recommendations on how to do it.
Oh yeah. And I've actually got. We're going to show. I think it's like a minute, a little over a minute. One of the SSI training videos of the SMB deployment that we have access to, the DSMB, and I'm going to see if our audio, if it'll let it play it, and we can still kind of talk about it. You there, JoJo?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got you.
All right.
So on this one here, this is the this is the positional deployment, and of course, like I said, in deep diving, you have to be able to do this skill hovering and mid water column. But there they are with the SMB and reel already attached, so that's usually a good idea. They've got an extra clip to clip it off to make sure it doesn't.
It's all one piece. See it?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's not like that. I use a clip, but you got to declip it and connect it to the device itself.
Yeah.
So.
And this one here, it looks like it's a valve style SMB that she's fixing to inflate there now, and yeah.
Here's a tricky part: is the second breath that she's about to take.
Yeah. Well, it looks like she only done it with one breath, and she's gonna go ahead and release it, and it's gonna go to the surface and pull down on it so that it causes it to be upright. And once you get it on the surface, then you can clip it off like she's doing here.
Yep.
That way you don't have to worry about it coming unspooled. You've got everything right there, and you're good to go.
Yeah. One thing I noticed when you buy them, they typically they might have 100 feet, but in reality, only about 50 feet of that is usable.
Yeah.
You put too much on it for you to clip off properly. So.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of different configurations that you can set an SMB up with. That was a simple, probably 100 or 150 foot finger spool that she had on there with just a simple, probably a 5 foot is what it looked like, 5 or 6 foot SMB. But you can get them even shorter. I mean, I think you can get 3 foot, if I'm not mistaken, is about as short of an SMB.
Like 12-foot long if you want.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I don't know why you'd want to take that much with you, but hey.
Well, I mean, they roll up and are pretty compact per se. And of course, clipping it off on your BC, if you've got everything set up, excuse me, and that's what I recommend is, I've seen people who, they'll have their finger spool on one side, they'll have their SMB clipped off on the other. And if you have to deploy that in a hurry, you're taking extra steps because now you've got to get everything attached and then send it up. Where if you've got everything already, you've got a dedicated finger spool or whatever dedicated for that SMB, then you've got everything already ready to go. All you have to do is unclip, roll it out, inflate it, and then you can let it go up and clip it off.
Yeah, definitely a good one to know. If you haven't practiced it, do it.
Oh yeah, yeah, most definitely. Looks like Brian Smith's in here. Good evening, sir. And Mr. Scott Tyree has just chimed in. Said I was on a drift dive at night with swift current, and we released SMB during diving. I mean, yeah, most definitely.
That is its purpose right there.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, especially if you're diving off of a boat. Now at nighttime, it's going to be a little bit harder to see. As long as they've got a light, they can shine, and most SMBs, you can see pretty well. They're high fluorescent,
Oh,
like I
you can
said.
put lights on your SMBs or glow sticks.
Yeah, yeah, you can stick a. One of the best things to do is your chem stick, your Siloam sticks. I mean, you literally, if you have an extra one in your BC at night, and you have to send your SMB up, if you have the open bottom. If you don't have the open bottom, it's a little hard to get that in there. But you can still, if you've got the open bottom type, you can crack it open, put it in there, put the air. That chem stick's gonna float to wherever the water level is in that SMB, and it's gonna light it up. So that's kind of a little trick that you can do. I don't know how you would do it on the valve style
Maybe you
SMB.
have a pre-attached light already wrapped around, pretty much on top of it.
You could, yeah, but yeah, I mean, and how important is an SMB really? If you think about it, in the event of an emergency, if you have one or if your buddy has one, in the event of an emergency, you can at least deploy it so that people know, number one, like at the park, if you're having problems at the bottom, you need help, pop that SMB. You know,
Mhm.
looking, and when we see SMBs pop, most of the times people let us know, hey, we're doing SMB training, and just so you know, if one pops up, okay. So we're kind of on the lookout for things like that. And, if we see one that we don't know about, we're going to start asking questions. And, so just it's one of those things. They're great to have. Really neat. Everybody needs one.
Mm, yeah, I agree. I have mine with me all the time.
Yeah. Scott says a great idea. Todd says I have one that is a sleeve built has a sleeve built to hold a glow stick. Yeah, so I mean they come, many different ways, where you can attach glow sticks already. It's if you don't have one, I would encourage you to start looking. Just one of those things to have you pack with you, and that way you've got it. I always say it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
But Mother's Day's coming up. She needs one. Father's Day will be here before you know it. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah. And I have never heard a diver say I have too much scuba gear. I've never heard a diver make that statement. I have too much scuba gear. Have you ever made that statement, Joe?
I've never made that statement. I always like, do I got one of these? Do I need another?
Oh yeah, wow, I've got one. Do I really need another one? Yeah, I need a backup. Yeah, let's go ahead. Or I need a backup for my backup for my backup.
This one's getting a little worn down. It's time for a new one.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like I said, it's a very important piece. It's a small piece of equipment, but it is an important piece. It does have an important role. Your SMB is really, it can be a lifesaver. If in the event of an emergency, if you're drift diving like in Cozumel, or if you're in general anywhere, you can pop your SMB, especially in navigable waters where boats are going back and forth bon air. When you get ready to surface and you're shore diving, I mean, it's a really good idea to go ahead and at least pop your SMB so that boats know, hey, there's a diver there, I need to stay away.
Never using the marking things too.
You can.
You want to know your entry and exit point is off the shore. I one up. You know?
Oh yeah.
Your
Yeah,
buddy
there's
has a backup, but yeah, you can use
yeah,
the mark
there's
thing.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with having, multiple, depends on, the old saying, you want to plan your dive and dive your plan. So if you're going to mark, where you're going to or your entry exit, you're going to do, use an SMB, you know, have a couple of them, set it up, tie it off. That way, whenever you go out, when you come back, you can untie it and go in. Todd says, Jill says, I'm Mr. Gadget. But do you say go go gadget when you're down there? That's the question.
I think
Go
it's
go
more like
gadget
bubble, bubble,
SMB.
bubble.
Do what?
I think it's more like bubble, bubble, bubble.
Bubble bubble bubble. Go go gadget SMB. There we go. uh, but honestly, I mean, if you think about it, I've been on trips where, not necessarily my groups, but you kind of as a group leader, you kind of pay attention to the other divers you're around. Whether there's additional people on your boat, or whatnot that you're not familiar with, you kind of as a dive professional, you kind of pay attention, and that's just part of a dive professional. It's not anything derogatory or anything like that. It's just like, while I'm down there, is this somebody I'm going to have to kind of watch out for, and what kind of equipment do they have? Do they have an SMB?
I need to watch you.
Yeah. Do I need to have my SMB on the ready? Like if, it's, I mean, it's one of those things. I remember when we were in Cozumel several years ago, there was a young lady and a couple of guys that were on the boat that were not part of our group. And honestly, I don't even know that they were actually certified. I have no clue. They, of course, in Cozumel, because she was a young lady, they were catering to her hand and foot. And yeah. So it was like one of those things. It was like, okay, there's a few red flags here I'm looking at. All right, I've got my SMB, so we're good. And on that particular trip, there were three of us that were instructors on that trip, and so we done the dive, and as we're getting close to the time mark, we look around, we didn't see the dive master, could not find the dive master, and of course it's like these this young lady and these two gentlemen were behind us, part of the group, and Jeff was one of the instructors, and I looked at Jeff, he looked at me, and we're like, where's the where's the dive master? Where'd he go? And we're looking around, we don't see him, and I just looked at Jeff and like, it's up to us, dude. We're gonna have to make a surface, and of course following the safety standards, deploy your SMB, get everybody's attention, deployed the SMB, and we pretty much told them, y'all are going up, we're all going up, and yeah, I got to crawl a dive master's rear end on that one. That was pretty fun. It's like, dude, I am not here to supervise your divers. That is what you're getting paid for. Where did you go? And anyway, but again, SMB is crucial because we had no idea where the dive master was. We were on a drift dive, so Lord only knows where the boat would have been. But because we popped that SMB and we followed it up as a group, the boat was able to come and pick us up. So it's that's just one case where having an SMB, is important. And like I said, SMBs, they don't take up a lot of space. Clip them on your BC, and you'll never know it's even there until you need it.
Yeah, same scenario. West Palm, drift diving. Jump in, and you're drifting. When you're ready to come up, you pop it, and the boat comes to get you. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like I said, if you're popping it stationary, it's not hard. It's really not. If you're not, if you're not comfortable with it or you don't do it all the time to practice it, that's what places like the park is set up for. Where you can practice your skills if you're getting ready to go on a big bucket list trip or something like that. You can check your equipment out, make sure everything works, practice skills that you may not be comfortable with or not used to doing frequently. SMB is a good one because there's not a lot of people that I know that practice SMB. They'll practice math skills. They'll practice, you know, air sharing, stuff like that. But, they're not, popping that SMB off on the platform and, shooting it up and, practicing rolling it back up, deflating it, doing that. So, you know, if you have one, I would encourage you to practice it. And, worst case scenario, check with your local dive shop. If they've got a training class or something going on, jump in and have one of the dive masters work with you. And hey, I want to work with SMB or whatever skill. It doesn't have to be just the SMB. But if there's skills that you're not comfortable with, then, definitely. I mean, somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, do you mind to help me with this skill?" Of course. JoJo, you'll be the same way. I mean, most dive professionals are going to be there to help you. If it's a skill that you're not comfortable with, be it math skills, be it, air sharing, regulator, whatnot. But SMB is probably the one that doesn't get practiced often enough.
no, probably not. It's like kind of like the difference between removing your mask in warm water and cold water too. Different things. It's the same
Well,
thing.
if you practice your mask flooding skills in cold water, it's gonna wake you up. JoJo, he doesn't function without his coffee in the morning, but he could probably jump in the water, when it's cold, do a mask clearing, and he'd be just fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's an experience.
Warm water. I mean, it's that's for an open water skill, the mask skills are typically the hardest for new students. And, again, you want to practice anytime you're diving, practice a skill, regardless of what the skill may be, you know, take a skill and say, hey, we're going to go by, this training platform or, if you're out on the ocean or whatnot, hey, let's practice this, while we're down there. So it doesn't hurt to practice at all.
Well, I mean, just anything you've got, taking it out, stowing it, always good practice for muscle memory.
Oh yeah. Well, and I use this too is, the comfort through repetition. The more you do something, like you said, becomes more muscle memory. So in the event something does happen, you're going to automatically react without really, thinking about it. You're going to be SMB, and you're going to be able to get that deployed easier if you've got that built into muscle memory versus, well, where's my spool, where's my I roll it out, how do I inflate this thing, kind of thing. Let's see. Brian says, yes, for sure, been looking for a way to make it not so scary, mask removal. So yeah, I mean, here's what I tell people on mask removal. It is the hardest skill in the open water skill circuit. And the reason that it is so hard is because, you know, you think if I take the mask off, I'm going to get water in my nose and, I could drown. Well, that's a plausible, explanation, but you also have to think as long as you exhale through your nose, water's not going to go up there. And so once you get your technique figured out, JoJo can tell you, I can tell you, there is no right way to do this skill. No right way, no wrong way. Mass clearing. I've seen people have to clear it, several different ways, but the object of that skill is, are you able to clear that without panicking? And
Yeah, I mean, heck, I think Chloe showed a different way of doing it last
oh
year,
yeah,
where she like stuck her fingers in her mask to hold her nose shut, then
yeah, yeah.
took it
And believe
off.
it or not, I have seen that done. Several years ago, I had a lady who went through class, and she absolutely could not let water, basically touch her nose. So she would do kind of the same thing. And that was the first time I'd ever seen it done that way. And I had her do it 2 or 3 times because I'm like, how is she clearing that thing? Because I mean, she's sticking her fingers up in her mask skirt, pinching her nose off, taking her mask off, putting it back on, and able to do it. Like I said, there is no really right or wrong way for that skill. You just have to demonstrate that you are able to uh, clear a flooded mask without panicking, trying to bolt to the surface, and you're able to do it consistently. That's the objective there. And what's really interesting, and I've seen this with several open water students, is once they get that skill, once they get their technique and they're able to do it repeatedly, they think to them, or they tell me, they're like, well, that wasn't hard at all. Like, yeah, you said it's the hardest skill. It is. Think about what it took for you to get to that point. Oh, yeah, you're right, But once I found it, it's so easy to do. Like, there you go. Some people just take longer. That's nothing wrong with it. Brian says almost every new diver freaks when the mask comes off. There's a lot. There really are. That's the reason. That's the reason we start these skills in basically 4 feet of water. Introducing them. That way, if something was to happen, they can just stand up. They know they can stand up and they're out of the water. But the thing is not to get freaked out over it. You have to find your technique. Just like with the SMB, I mean, you got to know what type of SMB you have. If you have it all ready to go, it's something that you practice. And even after open water, practice, 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 practice.
And again, it's a technique.
Yeah,
Instructor might teach you one way, but if you can do it a whole other way and accomplish the same goal, it doesn't matter.
exactly. And that's another thing that as a dive professional, JoJo may have a different technique than I know of that will help somebody out. Likewise, any of the other instructor staff, they may know other ways, and so that really helps, especially when you're in your dive professional development, whether it's dive master or it's instructor, that you not necessarily stay shadow, but intern with different dive professionals in classes. That way, and that's what we do. If we have a candidate, whether it's dive master or knock on now, since we are an instructor training facility, that's going to be one part in our ITC program, is that instructor candidates are going to be required to intern with a couple of different classes so that they can pick up a little bit different methods, because everybody teaches a little bit different. It's the same material, but they may have different techniques, ways to present the information. And so the more tools you have in your toolbox to help a student be successful, the better the chance is that that student's going to become successful and they're going to love to dive. And it's because of the dive professional's knowledge of, helping that student get through, whatever issue it was that was kind of holding them back.
And another part is you got to
Yeah.
dive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you definitely, you can't expect to go through open water class just to, dive on vacation maybe a day or two out of the year, on that cruise and expect to be a professional or, yeah, you're definitely going to need a lot of dives to get, to that point to be a proficient diver. Um, I always tell open water students, especially the buoyancy concept. I tell students, don't expect to master your buoyancy until after you have 100 dives, because in that 100 dives, you're getting certified. You're putting your kit together, whether it's buying your equipment at one time or you're piecing it together. It's figuring out your weight configuration for whatever you're diving with. Whether it's with wetsuit, without wetsuit, 3 mils, 5 mils, 7 mil. There's a lot of different variables there. And the key thing is to remember when you make a dive, log it. Log what you used, wetsuit, the thickness, how much weight you had, and document it. I was a little overweighted. I was a little underweighted. I may need to add a couple of pounds on the next dive. I may need to take away a couple of pounds on the next dive. Document it so that you can fine tune, that buoyancy, and you'll get there. And that's what I tell my open water students is don't expect to have it down within the first 100 dives. You'll get closer the closer to 100 you get, but it's the experience.
Yeah, wholeheartedly on the fine tuning part. The closer you get to it, and realize how much a 2 pound weight can throw you off.
Oh yeah.
uh, yeah, it takes a while.
Well, and
Another thing is after you do that, then you throw something like a camera in. Now you're doing it all over again.
oh yeah, anything that can cause a buoyancy change, a weighting change, you're going to have to counter it. And it's not just as simple as, putting a kid on and jumping in the water and going down. I mean, realistically, you can say, oh, well, I used, 10 pounds in the pool and now we've got you in a wetsuit. Oh, I used 10 pounds. Well, with a wetsuit, now, since we've added that, it's going to be more because that wetsuit's adding buoyancy. Like JoJo said, take an underwater camera down with you. That's going to change your buoyancy a little bit. So you may have to either counterweight your camera rig depending on how big it is, or you're going to have to add a pound or two to your kit to help offset that.
Yeah. So a lot to consider when you're talking about buoyancy. I don't think you ever stop learning buoyancy. I think
You
that's
don't.
always a chase goal.
No, I mean, you never stop. I mean, if you're diving and you're not thinking about buoyancy, then something's wrong, because your buoyancy should be, kind of the key thing you're watching. Because number one, especially in the ocean, we don't want to touch the coral. We don't want to, be drop too heavy and drop right down on it. You know, you can get too close to things when you get overweighted. If you're underweighted, you're going to be fighting to get down, and you may think that you're properly weighted at the surface, especially if you're diving with an aluminum cylinder. But something to keep in mind is that cylinder hits 1,500 pounds, it's going to become from neutral buoyant to positive buoyant. And the more air you breathe that down, the more positive it's going to become. And if you don't take that into account at the first, at the starting of your dive, you're going to be fighting the last half of the dive trying to stay down because you've got a half a tank or less.
Yep. there
you know.
many a times.
Oh yeah, I mean it's and it just depends. Again, different configurations, you're going to have to adjust plus or minus a couple of pounds. And aluminum versus steel. That's the reason I like steel cylinders, is because you don't really have to, whatever your weight is, your weight's going to be. It doesn't matter with steel cylinders if it's going to be, if you're going to be lighter at the end of the dive, because steel cylinders don't have that characteristic. They stay negative buoyant, where aluminum will become slightly positive, calling for, an extra, 2, maybe 4 pounds, depending on your configuration, that you're going to have to be overweighted at the start of the dive to equal it out at the end of the dive.
Yeah. Also, another key factor in buoyancy, and this could also go with air consumption, is how comfortable you're getting in the water.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause, once those start kind of, you're getting comfortable with either one, thinking a little bit less and less about it. You're thinking more of the diving now and having more fun.
Yeah. Well, the number one thing that most new students, when they come through open water, is they're going on a vacation. They want to be able to dive and see pretty fish. Hey, I get it. I love being in the ocean and seeing all the colors and, the different variety of wildlife. And, let a nurse shark come by and I'm just like in heaven, because, I'm able to get photos of them and see them, and, they're just awesome to see. And, but you always have to keep that in the back of your mind, is, your buoyancy. You don't want to drop down. You don't want to, cause any damage to the reef. You don't want to get injured, because, most places there's fire coral, and all it's going to take is brush up against some fire coral one time and you're going to know it.
Who's going to pee on
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. No.
it? You don't pee on stains.
Give me some vinegar, I'll be fine. But again, watching your buoyancy, and that's another thing is, don't touch anything. Enjoy the view, enjoy the peace, enjoy the tranquility that comes with diving, but keep in mind where you're at in the water column. Keep in mind, you don't want to, ooh, look, a little green moray eel. Come here, little eel. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Yeah, you'd be pulling back a nub.
That's all you're going to have. As alien just took your finger off.
Yeah, yeah. But, there's a lot to think about. And a lot of, like I said, a lot of people, once they get in the ocean, the more they dive, the more comfortable they get. And, that's the key thing. You have to be comfortable, properly weighted, comfortable in the equipment configuration, and you're going to notice your air consumption is going to be better. You know, one little thing I do with my open water students is I'll tell them about how to figure your surface air consumption rate, give them the equation, how to figure it, and I'll tell them, on your very first dive out of class, I want you to write your equation down. I want you to figure your SAC rate, your surface air consumption rate. And then I don't want you to think about your SAC rate until you hit 100 dives. I want you to work on, getting comfortable, your buoyancy, all of that through your first 100 dives. And then on dive number 100, when you celebrate, hey, I made my 100th dive, awesome. Hopefully you don't do it naked, but your 100th dive, figure your SAC rate and compare the two.
Haven't done my 100 yet.
Do what?
I haven't done my 100 yet. I need to do it.
Yeah, no. I'm not going to be on a trip and you try to do that. No, I will. I will.
I'm saving that one for a special dive.
Well, it better be a special time when nobody's around you, JoJo, because I tell you, I don't want to see it. I don't even want to be in the immediate vicinity. Let me sit on the boat. Let me be back at the resort. Whatever. Yeah. all you got to do, you got to give me a clue though. You got to say, hey, today's the day. All right, I'm not going. I'm staying right here. I'm gonna, enjoy the land side, and there you go.
I mean, it could be any bad worse than me saying, "Hey, don't follow me if I go behind the reef."
Yeah, I said last night's dinner's not agreeing with me. Don't follow me around this coral head. Oh goodness. Is I'm trying to check my feed here real quick. I don't know if I'm. Nope. I guess I don't have any new comments there, but
It was the last 15 minutes.
yeah, that's what I was just looking at. We've had some issues with the comments not updating. It looked like it had been updating for me tonight, and I was just wanting to double check. But yeah, I mean, practice skills. It doesn't matter if you're, open water certified or if you're an instructor. It doesn't matter what level. Practicing skills is only going to make you a better diver. It's going to make you more comfortable if something was to happen. It's going to make you react a little. Your reaction time is going to be a little bit better because you're doing it from muscle memory and not trying to go through your checklist. Well, what do I need to do? This I got to find this. So it's gonna speed up your response time. So never hurts to practice. Any skill.
Stress level's going to go down.
Huh?
Stress level's going to go down.
Yeah.
Oh, I lost the boat. Oh, okay. Pop it. I'll find it when I get up there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, whether it's SMB, whether it's mask skills, whether it's regulator skills, it doesn't matter. I mean, practice it. I mean, one of the easiest ones to do while you're diving is regulator recovery, because you can do your regulator recovery and while you're diving, and it's a quick, easy, simple skill to do to practice. I don't know that I would really, do it on the go, but I mean, it's not going to hurt anything as long as you can recover it. But practicing skills never hurt anybody. Let's see.
Hey, when was the last time you took everything apart underwater and put it back on?
Yeah. Well, we actually had a conversation about that this last week, talking about, the way skills were, 20, 30 years ago, like some of the skills that had been removed, basically because they were outdated. One
That's
skill.
not, don't get me wrong. There's
Huh?
no reason you should be taking off your BCD.
Yeah, well, not only that, like when I say outdated skills is, when I went through open water, there was a skill. It wasn't air sharing; it was buddy breathing.
Buddy breathing.
You
Yeah,
know,
that one.
and it was that way because in the '70s there weren't, '70s and early '80s there wasn't an octo, so you had to share the second stage, and come up. And of course, that has kind of went to the wayside because most all of your kits now come with two second stages, your primary and your alternate, whether it be like your Scuba Pro Air 2 connected to your BC, or it's actually another second stage off of your regulator set. And so that's a skill that, pretty much become obsolete because now all divers, majority of divers are carrying two second stages, the primary one they're using and then a backup. So there's no need for that skill. The other one we talked about was like weight removal, underwater, and BC removal underwater. Is, now with BCs being weight integrated, that's kind of another skill that's, it was designed if you had a weight belt on, and you were in open water class, whether it was confined water or it was, your checkout dive, you could take your BC off, remove it. You don't have to worry about coming to the surface because you had a weight belt, and you could put that BC back on and you're not having to fight it. Well, now, current day and age, most BCs are weight integrated. So if you take that BC off and you've got a wetsuit on, guess where you're going to try to go? You're going to try to go up straight up to the surface because
And
you've
hold
taken
on to
your
that BC.
yeah, you've taken your BC off, and now that weight's not connected to you, and it's trying to take you to the surface. So that's another reason why it's still done in the pool, in the confined water, um, you know, 10 foot or less. But open water during the evaluation dives, you do it on the surface, but they've taken it out of on the bottom because I'm assuming because of the weighting issues. I can see the potential risk there. A brand new student trying to do this skill and they lose their grip on their kit. Now their wetsuit's trying to take them up. It pulls the regulator out of their mouth, and now you've truly got an out of air emergency with someone who is learning how to dive. So I get why they took that out.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, open water skills, regardless of your level, are important skills to maintain and practice, regardless of whether you're an open water diver, advanced open water diver, rescue diver, dive master, or instructor. Always good to practice those skills regardless.
Yep.
JoJo's like, yep. But,
Do
in
your
conclusion,
homework today? Yes, sir.
do what?
Did you do your homework today? Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I mean, if you don't take anything else away from this episode, I hope you take away the importance of keeping those open water skills fresh. In the event that something was to happen and you have to be able to react fast without panicking, because number one cause of dive related injuries and deaths are situations that could have been prevented and but panicked. And so that's another reason why it's important to practice, be comfortable with your skills, and you know never hurts to practice.
You know you're gonna pick up more as you keep going. Practice them too.
Do I?
Then you know you're gonna get more skills as you keep going. So practice
Oh
them
yeah,
too.
carrying, open water, carry on into advanced, carry on into rescue. One of my favorite classes that really gives you the nuts and bolts about diving, helps you understand the physics and the physiology, is the science of diving in SSI. Now, again, on the Patty side of it, a very good resource that Patty has out is the Encyclopedia of Recreational Diving, which is a great resource that has, pretty much everything physics, physiology, how we figure, partial pressures and, atmospheric pressure and, all just pretty much the nuts and bolts, of diving. And that's a uh, good resource to read. And like I said, SSI's Science of Diving kind of goes a little bit more into depth, like into the gas laws and more of the physics, physiology of buoyancy, Archimedes principle, stuff like that. So don't stop learning. Don't let open water be that's I'm open water diver and I'm enjoying diving. Hey, that's great, but there's a whole lot more to the sport than open water.
You're gonna scare everybody off talking about that physics and science stuff.
Well, if you're like me, you like to kind of know how things work. And
I do.
You know, if you don't really understand it, but you know, you're going to be, you know, I'm the type of person, you know, well, I get the gist of it, but how does it come to this? I'm going to research it. I'm going to look at it, and you know, I'm going to, you know, come to the best conclusion that I can, and based on the resources that I use and I find, you know, and go from there. All right, JoJo. Well, we have burned through another hour, another Monday night, and it is 8:58. Do you have any final thoughts for this evening?
Please stop raining.
Please stop. Oh.
Oh, tired. It's Monday. I can feel it. Ready to get in the water this weekend, hopefully. So, well, I'm not getting in the water, but I'm hoping to be by the water at least.
Uh, yeah, well, it's you know, it's one of those things. I know we actually have an instructor update training this weekend. Our new instructor trainer, Mr. Brian Tierney, is going to be working with our instructors on the latest updates to skills and you know updates through SSI, making sure that everybody's teaching you know the most current, up to date skills which are required, and going to be doing an evaluation. So you know they'll be doing that, and I'm sure you're going to get pulled into that too, JoJo.
Probably.
Yeah. I'm sure you're going to get pulled into it.
I need to find that spring really fast so I can get back to diving.
All right, guys. Well, it is almost that 9 o'clock hour. I just want to thank you guys for tuning in with us on each and every Monday night. You know, absolutely enjoy doing this on Monday nights. This is our 5th year doing it. You know, looking forward to seeing everybody out at the quarry this summer. Remember, practice, practice, practice those skills. Expand your diving knowledge. You know, check with your local dive shops. Make sure, see what kind of classes and stuff are coming up, and get out and dive, and you know, enjoy it. And don't forget, we will be taking our summer break coming up. The Monday before Memorial Day will be our last episode of the winter spring season here, and we'll take our summer break, and we'll be back in the fall after Labor Day. Just make sure that you head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe to it, because we will be there primarily in the fall. With Facebook's, I can say restrictions, but their new rules implemented. They are no longer keeping these live episodes after 30 days. So, you know, if you don't see it within 30 days, or hey, I remember seeing that on a past episode, and you try to go back and look, it won't be there. So that's the reason why we're making the switch over to YouTube. So head over there to YouTube. You can find our channel. And I need to start programming that in so it can be listed on the bottom here. I may do a QR code on it or something. But anyway, as always, if you're diving with us this weekend, we can't wait to see you. If you aren't diving with us, we hope you have a fun, safe, and adventurous diving weekend. And we can't wait to see everybody out this season. You know, it's going to be a beautiful season. Get out, dive, enjoy the underwater world, and we will catch you guys next Monday night right here on the Pennyroyal Divers Group Monday Night Safety Stop.
We are the kings of it.